Welcome everyone. My name is Aisling Harris and I'm a cardiac and weight management dietitian with Croí Heart and Stroke Charity. And I'm really happy to be giving this webinar on eating well as we age as part of the Healthy Ireland at Your Libraries with Galway Libraries. So today I'm going to be giving a bit of an overview of how and what we should be eating as we age, specifically as we hit the age of around 65. And in 2021, the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, the FSAI, released new recommendations for dietary guidelines for older adults in Ireland. And these are in particular for adults aged over 65. And as part of this, they make it quite clear that some older adults are healthy and fit and have good capacity for exercise and good dentition, while as other older adults might have chronic conditions which can compromise activity levels, and there might be different requirements for each. So this is what I'll be going through today. So one of the first points they mention is that adults aged 65 and older are more likely to be overweight than any other adult age groups. And indeed, 3 in 4 adults aged 50 plus live with overweight or obesity in Ireland. And this can be due to a number of reasons. Our metabolism tends to slow down as we get older. We tend to have taste changes, so we can have more of a taste for salty foods, sugary foods, fatty foods, so taste can change, and then our foods that we eat can change. We can also be a bit less active, and our muscle mass can decrease as we age as well. So the less muscle mass we have, that can impact our metabolism and that can slow our metabolism. So we really want to avoid this muscle mass as we age. And that's why it's really important for most people, but especially older adults, that if you are trying to lose weight, you should avoid going on a severe or quite a restrictive diet where you'd be having, say, a very low calorie intake or very little food intake. That's not good anyway, but that isn't good, especially when we want to preserve muscle mass. If we're not eating enough, sometimes when we're losing weight, indeed, some of the weight we're losing might be muscle, but also, some of the weight we're losing can be fat, which is what we might want to be losing, but some of it can also be muscle. And we really want to avoid that because obviously we need that muscle mass for immune function, but also mobility to prevent falls and fractures. So much better to aim for steady, gradual weight loss. So maybe that's by smaller portion sizes, less kind of unhealthy foods or biscuits, desserts, more healthy foods. So lots of different things we can do to gradually lose weight. And then also to combine these diet changes with resistance exercises. So that would be exercises that involve weights or body weight exercises that will help build up muscle mass. Because as we age, so from the age of about 40 to 70, we tend to lose 8% of our muscle mass per decade, so per 10 years. But once we hit the age of 70, that increases to about 15% muscle mass loss per decade. And like I said, that can reduce mobility, it can increase weakness, increase the risk of falls and fractures, and we want to avoid that. So we can prevent losing this muscle by eating enough protein, and I'll go through what is protein. So eating enough protein and at the right time, and doing regular physical activity, and including some resistance or strength training. So the first, like I mentioned, we need to eat enough protein. Protein is, things like your meat, poultry, so your chicken, turkey, fish, eggs, dairy, like your milk, yogurt, cheese, beans and legumes, lentils, things like that, and nuts and seeds. And older adults actually need more protein than younger adults. And that's something that a lot of us might not know. And the meat, poultry, fish, and eggs, so the animal proteins, tend to be more available for our body to use and higher in protein. So it's easier to get protein from these foods than maybe it is from the dairy and beans and nuts and seeds, but they're still good sources too. So it's important to have one of these foods in at least 2 meals per day. So it could be your lunch and dinner, or maybe breakfast. Maybe breakfast you're having eggs or an omelette or eggs on toast. Maybe lunch you're having could be a sandwich with chicken, turkey, tuna, fish, eggs, hummus or something in it. And then dinner, again, you're having a protein source. So if you get it in 3 meals per day, that's great. You know, and even if you're having your cereal, maybe you're having your milk in your cereal and maybe a yogurt or a high protein yogurt, or even a boiled egg with your cereal. So we can get it in throughout the day, and it's better to get it in throughout the day. So get in the protein over the day rather than at one meal. So say you only have protein at your dinner and you don't have it at the 2 other meals a day. That's not very good because our body can't use all that protein at once. So we want to spread it out over the day. And then the next thing is I just wanted to go through maybe an idea of how you could increase protein throughout the day. So if at the moment for breakfast you're having toast with butter and jam, there's not much protein in that. There's very little of any. So, and then for lunch, maybe you're having your vegetable soup and bread. Then for dinner, you're having your chicken, your vegetables, your potatoes. So this is the first place we're getting a significant amount of protein. So from the chicken. And then dinner is a nice looking slice of apple tart and custard. So no protein in that, but probably high in calories. So how could we change this day to make it a bit higher in protein and a bit healthier? So for breakfast, instead of the butter and jam, you could have some scrambled or poached or boiled eggs there for breakfast. Get your good hit of protein in the morning. For lunch, maybe you really like your soup, but it might be a way to just change up what's in it. So this soup has, you know, chunky vegetable soup with some leftover shredded chicken, could be from the night before. And you can see in there, there's some chickpeas and beans. So things like chickpeas, good source of protein. You can get them quite cheaply. So in the tin, drain the tin, and you can throw them into a soup or a salad or a stew. They don't even have to be cooked when they're in the tin. They're already cooked. So that's another good way of getting in the protein through the soup. And as well, you're getting an extra fiber. Dinner, don't need to change anything much with the dinner, getting protein in there. And maybe for dessert, instead of the apple tart most days, maybe we save that for once a week and then have something healthier like yogurt and fruit in the evening on most days. So some small, simple changes, but it's definitely, you can see there's a lot more protein in the second row. So this person then will be getting enough protein to support their muscle mass. Another important thing to consider is hydration. So how much fluid you're drinking, are you staying hydrated? This doesn't just have to come from water. So water will be the best source of hydration, but you can drink milk, tea, coffee, unsweetened fruit juices. These all count. Women need about 1.6 liters of drinks each day. So all fluids you drink, apart from alcohol, will count. And men need at least 2 liters a day. So that could be your 6 to 8 cups, but all count. If you are underweight, maybe frailer, older adults, milky drinks are a great source of extra calories and protein as well as fluid. So you can use milk, but if you were watching your weight, your water and unsweetened dilutable drinks would be better. And just something to mention would be that try to avoid strong tea or even coffee with meals, because this will interfere with the absorption of iron and zinc from your food. So 2 really important nutrients. The tea can block that. So the compound in tea can block us absorbing that. So try to wait about a half an hour after your meal, or at least a half an hour before your meal, before drinking your strong tea. You can have herbal caffeine-free teas with your meal if you want. That's fine, or indeed your water is fine, but just avoid the strong tea. And try to avoid caffeine, like tea or coffee, close to bedtime, because it can disrupt your sleep. So again, your caffeine-free tea or coffee or some of the herbal teas can be fine. There's no caffeine in them, so they'll be okay. And then alcohol intake for everyone should be kept to a minimum, but especially as we age, our tolerance for alcohol decreases and it can increase the risk of comorbidity. So trying to keep alcohol as low as possible. Another nutrient that we should consider and try to eat more of is fiber. So fiber, You'll know it from, whole grain foods and cereals. The main function of fiber is that it helps prevent constipation, which can be an issue for older adults, and it can be due to a lack of fiber in the diet, less physical activity, dehydration, or certain medications. So constipation is quite common, but it can be prevented by having more fiber, and fiber will protect against cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and can help prevent colorectal cancer. So really important to increase our fiber intake, and that could be higher fiber cereals like bran flakes, all bran, Weetabix, porridge is another good one. You can increase the fiber content by adding nuts and seeds. Indeed, flaxseed is a very good one to add, particularly if you suffer with constipation. Adding 2 teaspoons or a dessert spoon of flaxseed to your porridge or even your yogurt can really help with constipation. If you eat potato, most of the fiber is in the skin, so try keep the skin on. You might switch from a white bread to a high fiber brown bread. And then other lesser known high fiber foods would be your beans, lentils, legumes, and of course your fruit and vegetables. So trying to increase our fiber intake, and if you do, increase it slowly. Don't change everything overnight. Maybe change 1 or 2 things, and make sure that you're drinking enough fluids or water, because if you increase your fiber intake without also staying hydrated and drinking enough fluid, that can cause constipation to get a bit worse. So just mind your fluid intake if you're increasing fiber. Another important nutrient to consider is fat. So there's actually 2 types of fats, good fats and bad fats. And the reason that the bad fats are so-called bad fats is because they raise our LDL cholesterol, and LDL stands for lousy. It should be low. So saturated fat is the main thing in our diet that will affect cholesterol. It's not actually cholesterol found in foods, it's saturated fat. So our body makes our own cholesterol, not what we get from food. And this is mainly found in things like butter, processed meats like sausages, rashers, puddings, cheese, red meat, so pork, lamb, duck, ham, bacon, all those red meats. And then trans fats, which is like saturated fat, would be in things like biscuits, cakes, fried foods, pastries, desserts. So all these kind of nice foods. We don't have to cut them out completely, but we should reduce how often we're having them. And then the foods on the right in green are the good fats. So these help raise our good cholesterol and can help lower the bad cholesterol. And these would be found in foods like olive oil, avocado, plain, unsalted, unroasted nuts, seeds like pumpkin, sunflower, flaxseed, oily fish like salmon, mackerel, trout, sardines, sunflower oil. So they're all good fats. Try to have a bit more of these in your diet and a bit less of the ones in red. And that will really help with your cholesterol and your heart health overall. Another important nutrient when it comes to heart health is salt. So salt has a big impact on blood pressure. So if you have high blood pressure, you really should be paying attention to your salt intake, as indeed should we all, because even if we don't have high blood pressure now, it tends to increase with age in general. So we should be watching our salt intake. And over 50% of older adults in Ireland have high blood pressure, and it can be made more difficult because as we age, our sense of taste diminishes slightly, which leads us to maybe needing a bit more salt on our food to get the same salty taste. So to be aware of that and trying to combat that by using more herbs and spices and different flavorings so that we're not as reliant on salt. And we should be aiming to have less than 6 grams of salt per day. And most of that is already found in foods. So it's already found in things like bread, cereals, pasta, anything that's processed. There'll be a little bit of salt in those foods. But then there's also the obviously high salt foods like your crisps and popcorn. I'll show you other foods as well. So we really want to reduce salty foods, limit salt in cooking, don't add any extra at the table. And it's important to avoid salt substitutes such as the potassium salts, or you might have seen low salt, because the potassium can be harmful if we have a slightly diminished kidney function, which can be quite common as we age as well. So avoid those salt substitutes and use more herbs and spices for flavor rather than other salts. So more herbs and spices, less things like stock cubes. They're there to kind of add that salty flavor. There are low salt and zero salt stock cubes on the market now. So you might try cooking with them instead and see how that goes. And they're actually quite nice. I've tried them, so they're a good alternative. Avoiding or reducing things like crisps, salted peanuts, salted crackers. Look for the reduced salt and sugar versions of things like beans. There's lots of different things now where they're reformulating them because they know we want to eat less salt and less sugar. So the food manufacturers are changing those a bit. The ketchup, brown sauce, soy sauce, again, can be high in salt. So watching how much of these and how often you're using them. And then, of course, processed and red meats, sausages, rashers, reducing them as well because they're quite salty. And then looking at different micronutrients. So we have different needs for these depending on our age and stage of life, but vitamin D is quite an important one and one that we've heard a lot about over the past year. And now that it's coming into autumn and winter, especially during the months of October and March, we tend to need a vitamin D supplement. And that's because the main way that we make vitamin D is through our skin from sunlight. And not that we get much in Ireland anyway, but we can't make it with the angle of the sunlight between October and March. So we need a supplement. We can get some vitamin D from oily fish, eggs, and fortified foods, but it's generally not enough. And vitamin D is really important for bone health and immunity. So the guidelines in Ireland are that healthy older adults who get some sunlight exposure during the summer should take a 10 microgram or 400 IU. It can be written both of those ways. You should take a 10 microgram or 400 IU supplement during the winter months. If you have darker skin, you should take this all year. And if you wouldn't get much sunlight exposure during the summer, maybe you're a housebound older adult, then you should take 15 micrograms or 600 IU supplement all year. So different recommendations. So you can speak to your pharmacist or your GP as well when you're picking the supplement, but about 10 micrograms would be good for most people. And then another important vitamin would be your B vitamins and folate. And low levels of these are quite common. And this can be, again, due to inadequate intake, so not eating enough of these vitamins, can be due to poor absorption, increased requirements or interactions with different medications. It can be associated with cardiovascular disease, cognitive dysfunction, and osteoporosis, but it's very difficult to measure, are we getting enough from our diet? So it's important to test these in your routine blood tests with your GP. So they might add them on, or you might mention that they add these on in your next blood test, and you can see from then if you're eating and if you have enough, and if you don't have enough, you might need a supplement then. But the main food sources for B12 would be meat and fortified breakfast cereals. So if you get your cereal, you might see on the box that it's fortified with these vitamins, and most of them are. B6, again, is meat and milk. Riboflavin, another B vitamin, is milk and dairy. And then folate or folic acid, the best source is fortified foods and supplements. It is found in green leafy veg, legumes, and liver, but we don't absorb that type of folate as well as folic acid. So supplements and fortified foods will be the best. So if you have a balanced diet, you might be getting enough, but certain people for different reasons might not be absorbing it as well. So getting that test in your blood tests would be important. Vitamin C, really important for the immune system. It's found in fruits, vegetables, and fresh potato. Iron, it's important for making blood and preventing anemia. And iron is mainly found in meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and beans. And the interesting thing about these is that vitamin C can help us absorb iron. So if you're having a high iron food, so let's say you're having chicken or beef stir fry, if you put in foods that contain vitamin C with it, it will help you absorb iron. So you can see in the picture here, I've got the beef stir fry, and then I've got peppers, which are a great source of vitamin C, so it'll help you absorb some iron. Or maybe you're having a bowl of fruit salad after your dinner, so fruit, great source of vitamin C, or maybe a glass of fruit juice with your dinner. That might be the easiest way for some people to get into vitamin C with the meal. So that will help you absorb it. And remember to not have your tea or coffee with the meal because that will block the iron absorption. So if you're low in iron, you'll know from blood tests, having a vitamin C, your juice, your fruit, or your peppers with your meal will help, and avoid the tea and coffee. And then the other big one is calcium. So we all know this is important for bone health. It's found in dairy products or calcium fortified foods. So if you don't eat dairy foods, maybe you have alternative, milk or yogurt alternatives, just make sure that they're fortified with calcium, which a lot of them are actually fortified with calcium nowadays, but just check the label and then you're not missing out on anything by having the alternatives. Aim for 3 portions a day. So by that, it could be your milk in your cereal for breakfast, maybe a glass of milk throughout the day, a yogurt, you've got some milk in your tea or coffee throughout the day, and then cheese is okay too. Cheese tends to be a little bit higher in salt, so your milk and yogurt are the best options, and then your cheese as well occasionally. And lastly, zinc, again, really important for immune function. The best sources of zinc from the diet are your high protein foods, so your meats, particularly the dark meats like tuna, red meat, leg meat or thigh, as distinct from the breast meat, so the white meat on poultry. Cheese, eggs, and nuts are also good sources. So again, very much a balanced, varied diet. You can see that you're covered for most of the important vitamins and minerals. And just to summarize overall, if trying to lose weight, do so gradually. So be really mindful of not losing weight too quickly, because that can lead to losing muscle mass. Make sure to have at least 2 protein foods per day, so in 2 meals. So maybe your eggs for breakfast, your meat or chickpeas in your soup or sandwich at lunch, and then again for dinner, you've got your meat, your fish, your poultry, your eggs, your beans, and then you're getting your protein in, spread out over the day. Include some strength or resistance training. And if you're new to this, Croí, so Croí Heart and Stroke Charity, you can check out our website, www.croí.ie, for more information on resistance training and some home workout videos that you can do using some light weights. Or we also have a range of different classes. So you can check out our website if you were interested in that, or just hearing a bit more about strength and resistance training and exercise in general. As well, it's important to stay hydrated throughout the day. Avoid tea or coffee with meals. Be mindful of your alcohol intake, and then eating more fiber, less saturated fat, both going to be very important for heart health as well. And of course, reducing salt and being aware of some of your taste changes. In terms of micronutrients and supplements, important to consider a vitamin D supplement coming into the winter months. See if you can get your B vitamin and folate levels checked in your blood tests with your GP. And then you'll see overall eating a varied and balanced diet will help make sure that you get all your micronutrient, vitamin, mineral, protein, all these different things will be covered if you have a varied balanced diet. And if you would like any more information on anything we've talked about today, you can check out our website, www.croí.ie, for lots of different information and downloadable resources. We also run weekly webinars as part of our HeartLink West service. So we talk about different topics each week, from blood pressure, cholesterol, food labels, and eating well as we age. So this is given by myself, the dietitian. We also have a nurse and a physiotherapist. And we also have a nurse helpline, nurse support line, as part of the HeartLink West service if you have any questions that you would like answered by a nurse in relation to heart health. So again, you can get all these details on our website, croí.ie. But I hope you enjoyed this talk today about eating well as we age. And again, thank you to Healthy Ireland and Galway Libraries for having me.